Hey guys, what's up? This is Panzer Dragon, and today we'll be doing an itemization guide for defensive items which go under the category of defense. Now, first of all, we won't be going over all items. In fact, we'll be going over items that are purely on defense. So this includes such items as Warmog's Armor, Thorn Mail, Sunfire, Banshee's Veil. I think you get the idea. And so this video is going to be oriented more towards junglers who want to build defensively and top laners who also want to build defensively. There will be other videos for the other items, but for now, I just want to concentrate on the defensive items. Alright, so the way this video is going to work is I'm going to be explaining every item, why it's good and which champions it benefits the most. And then after that, I'm going to be giving certain example scenarios and team compositions on when you should buy it, why you should buy it, and maybe times where you shouldn't buy it. And that's the way this video is going to go so that you guys understand the concept of buying items in certain situations. Alright, so the first item we're going to be going over is the Banshee's Veil. So this is the best item to get against magic damage for any champion. Just because the stats on it is really good, you get magic resist, health, spell shield, and health regen. So like anyone who wants to build survivability against magic damage will benefit greatly from this item. The next item is going to be a Randuin's. Same concept as Banshees, you get hit point, armor, and yeah, basically the general item to get against physical damage, regardless of the passive and active. So yeah, it's good on any tank who just wants to be tanky against physical damage. Next up is Frozen Heart, and the difference when buying Frozen Heart and Randuin's is that you have to think about, do I have enough hit point to supply for the armor that Frozen Heart gives me? So like say I'm Darius and I have 1600 hit point with Frozen Heart. Is that good? Probably not. I'll probably be bursted out by the AP mage since I don't have enough hit point in me. And enemies who have Last Whisper will definitely penetrate my 1600 hit point and 100 armor. So it's not a good buy if I don't have the hit point to complement the armor that it gives. But let's say I do have the hit point like 2.5k to complement the armor that it gives and all the other benefits. Then it is a better buy than Randuin's because I get 20% cooldown reductions, which tanks do love, and an aura to reduce the enemy's attack speed. So champions which give shields to themselves like Jarvan and Sion and Nautilus benefit greatly from this item since the cooldown reduction also helps them get their shields out more. Or if you're supported by say someone like Janna, Lulu, or even Soraka, then even better, you have more health to sustain the armor. So I think you guys understand the concept. You should only buy the Frozen Heart if you have the hit point to complement the armor. Next up is the Guardian Angel, and this is usually bought on fully offensive champions like Riven, AD carries who need a defensive item, or just to win a team fight. I would never want to really buy this on say a tank like Nautilus because he can get other items like Solari or even Randuin's or Frozen Heart to help his team win the team fight. Plus he is a tank, and usually what tanks do is hop in the team fight, use all their skills, and die. Also, getting this when you're behind is like really risky because you might not win the team fight even if you do revive. So again, get this item for very offensive champions who want to win just one team fight. Because after the passive is gone, you're only getting like 1900 gold worth of stats off of a 2850 gold item. So it's not that worth it once the passive is gone. So next item we're going to be talking about is the Locket of the Iron Solari. This item is probably the best, especially if rushed when facing a lot of magic damage. Usually it is the jungler's job to get this, sometimes the support, but I tend to get it a lot in my games. So why is this a good item? You get 400 health, potentially more with the active, and 20 magic resist to all your allies, except yourself, you get 40. And 10% cooldown reduction, which tanks love, all for the price of 2800 gold. So a very valued item, especially in team fights. This item is usually bought when you're facing a high amount of magic damage, which could mean an AP top laner and an AP mid laner. I would probably not buy this on the top laner since they're usually a bruiser and more fed than a jungler. And so I do feel like it's the jungler's job to support his team or even the support to get this item. This is definitely better than Banshee's Veil if you're playing for team fights, but if you are playing for say split pushing, playing a bit selfishly and relying on yourself to win the team fights, then Banshee's Veil is the way to go for you. So next up what we talk about is the Mercury Treads and Ninja Tabi. So this one's pretty obvious. Get Mercury Treads if the enemy has crowd control or high magic damage, and if the enemy has no CC, then get Ninja Tabi. Next up we'll be talking about the new item Righteous Glory, and honestly this item is meant for initiators like Maokai, Wukong, you know, people who want to get an easier initiation and team fight, would look towards this item, especially if they're ahead or they know they can win team fights. Because if you're ahead, you'll most likely be winning team fights, and what better way to win the game than kill the enemy and then get objectives after that. The only problem about this item is that the stats that it gives, the only one that's useful is the 500 health, and when compared to items like Banshee's Veil or Sunfire Cape, it's not that worth it. So the only thing that you should be thinking when buying this item is that, do we have a better team fight, do we want to get a better engage on them, and are we an initiator? If all the answers are yes, then you can get this item. If we are behind, or say we don't know if we can win the next team fight, then I would recommend staying away from this item. Next item we're going to be talking about is a Spirit Visage, and this is going to be the same concept when buying Banshee's Veil, only with champions who have innate sustain. So that means like people like Mundo, Yorick, Warwick, and Rek'Sai. These are champions who have some sort of self-healing regeneration ability. Now, there are 3 special cases which I wouldn't consider getting Spirit Visage on, and that would be Lee Sin, Fiddlesticks, and Elise. The reason you don't get it on Lee Sin is because, well, unless you're going Ravenous Hydra and Bloodthirster, the cooldown reduction would be useless because he is an energy user, and you're better off with a Banshee's Veil. For Elise, even though her W does give life on hit, she doesn't auto attack that much unless she is in a 1v1 situation. Otherwise, in a team fight, she plays more of a range bruiser kinda champion. As for Fiddlesticks, he would scale better by getting more AP, so he can drain more life, and he's better off with, say, a Banshee's Veil to stop the enemies from interrupting his ultimate, or even Abyssal Scepter. Next item is the Sunfire Cape. So this item is for people who want to get Randuins but want to be doing some damage. So this is a meta item for, say, top laners who want to do damage and of course be tanky, like Mundo, Malphite, and Renekton. As for, say, a jungler getting this item, the only way I would consider getting this item is if, say, I'm Nautilus or something like that, and I'm pretty fed and I'm ahead, so I want to be doing some damage in the team fights. Otherwise, I would just stick to either Frozen Heart or Randuins. The next item we'll be talking about is Thornmail. So it's kind of the same concept as Frozen Heart, as in you need a certain amount of health to compensate for the armor plus the passive that it gives. The only thing that is different from Frozen Heart and this item is that this item is kind of more selfish in a way, as it's cheaper and it doesn't give that 15% attack speed debuff, and instead when an AD carry is attacking you, they take damage. And so the only way that this item is better than Frozen Heart or even Randuin's is that if you have an excessive amount of hit point, then the Thornmail passive is greatly efficient. And so this item is generally built as a 5th or 6th item, to compensate for the other items that give hit point. And so good item combinations would be like Sunfire Thornmail or Randuin Thornmail, or even Banshee's Thornmail, but never Frozen Heart Thornmail, since the Frozen Heart doesn't give hit point. And finally, as our last defensive item we'll be talking about will be the Warmogs. I think, honestly, this item is just here to complement your resist, as having a lot of hit point without resist doesn't make you that tanky, and you're also vulnerable to maximum health damage moves. So I'd like to say this is a good 4th, 5th, or 6th item to complement your resist. Alright, so finally we'll be doing examples of team compositions and a certain champion versing those team compositions and what you should be building. So the first team composition we have is Darius. We're a top laner versing a Jarvan, Graves, Orianna, Rumble, and Braum. And let's assume that the enemy team has equal gold and no one on the enemy team is super fed. We also have in our inventory Triforce, Hexdrinker, and Mercurial Treads. So what item should we build next? The next item would probably be to get a Randuin, since we're finally taking on the Graves since we are doing some team fights. And then after that we'd probably build a Banshees, and for the 6th item, it's very situational, but I'm probably going to lean towards like a Warmogs or something. Now let's start over, and instead of having like a Jarvan jungle, we will have, say, Malphite jungle. And with the Malphite jungle, this actually prioritizes us to get a Banshee's Veil instead of a Randuin, since their magic damage is really high and the only physical damage threat is the Graves. And then we actually finally get Randuins because Graves is starting to hurt us. Or even a Frozen Heart, but I don't think theirs scales that well with cooldown reduction. And now let's actually say that Orianna is Zed. Then we would actually get the Ninja Tabi instead of a Mercury Treads. And like the only magic resist we'll have is the Hexdrinker for the Rumble and Malphite, and since Malphite is a tank, he isn't a high magic damage threat, and so what I would build is probably a Randuin's and then after a Frozen Heart, maybe a Banshee's Veil as my 6th item, or even after the Randuin's if I see the magic damage is starting to hurt. Though maybe the Hexdrinker, and if our team has a Locket, then we probably don't need the Banshee's Veil. So I think you guys understand the idea of building against the enemy's team composition. Now let's kind of move on to a new team composition where we're Sion, generally a pure tank, versing a Malphite, Graves, Orianna, Riven, and Braum. And we have the Sunfire Cape and Ninja Tabi since we're laning against a Riven. And again, assume everyone on the enemy team has the same amount of gold, and we are at the mid game. So what do we build next? We're probably going to build a Randuin since Riven and Graves are high damage threats, while the only magic damage threat we have is Orianna and Malphite just a little bit. The reason we don't need to build any more magic resist is because the physical damage coming from Riven and Graves is sustained damage, while coming from Malphite and Orianna is burst damage. We also might have a locket from the jungler, so we won't be bursted down by the magic damage since we do have the hit point to sustain that burst damage. And then finally, once Orianna gets her death cap, maybe even a void staff, it's time to get some magic resist as she's going to be doing a lot of damage. So we do get that Banshee's Veil. And then for a 5th and 6th item, you can put like a Thorn Mail, Frozen Heart, Warmog's Armor, whatever you feel like is the best for you in that situation. Alright, so now let's talk about a full offensive bruiser like Riven. So let's say we're pretty fed and we have our Ravenous Hydra, cooldown boots, Brutalizer, and Last Whisperer against a Malphite, Graves, Orianna, Sion, and Braum. So at this point, we probably don't want to be building, all offense. We want to get some defense. So since the enemy team has so much mixed damage, we'll probably consider getting a Guardian Angel since we do have the hit point for our shield to complement our resist. If we are building offensively, there's a chance that we can screw up and maybe get Ori ulted or even Malphite ulted and then get bursted by Orianna and Graves right after. So it's better to build one defensive item, especially if you're ahead, so that you survive and not get caught out. If say the enemy team had a Jarvan instead of a Malphite, I'd probably consider even getting Randuin's over Guardian Angel just because there's a lot of physical damage coming from the enemy team, Sion, Graves, Jarvan. It's also a bit less riskier than Guardian Angel because with Guardian Angel you have to wait like 5 minutes for the passive to come back up. And now for the last team composition, we'll be playing Lee Sin, and we'll be playing him as a jungler against a Rengar, Corki, Azir, Maokai, and Janna. So as you can see, there's tons of magic damage coming from the enemy team, Corki, Azir, and Maokai. So the first thing we get is the Iron Solari, as that will greatly improve our team fighting against the enemy team. After that, we'll probably get a Randuin because at this point Corki has maybe a Triforce and Infinity Edge and starting to do damage to us. Then we might finish off with a Banshees unless the Rengar is full AD, then we can go Thorn Mail. Now let's say the team comp was different and the enemy had a Jarvan top instead of Maokai. Instead of going Mercury Treads, we'd probably go Ninja Tabi, but we'd still get the Solari because Corki and Azir are still magical damage threats. So I think that's the end of this video. I hope you guys got the general idea of itemization and what to build against certain team comps. And in some games, enemy AD carry might be more fed than usual, so you might want to be prioritizing armor over magic resist and vice versa. And so I'll be doing another video like this if you guys liked it. For instance, like building offensive items on off tanks like Wukong and Lee Sin. Also, if you guys have any suggestions to add to this video, I'd gladly appreciate your feedback, since to be honest, I don't know what you guys are expecting, and I personally don't know if this video was for you, to be honest, so I'd greatly appreciate some feedback in the comments below, and then we'll try and improve upon that. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.